now is what's going to happen to the yen, the Japanese yen. That's something I'm looking at right now. Japanese yen has been in a consolidation now for some time, and it's looking to break out now. As to which direction it's going to break out, well, we're going to wait and see, but that's going to be my main focus to look at.
Alessio Rastani of the website that you can visit to find out more, leadingtrader.com. It's also on screen. Joins us. It's been really interesting talking to you. You know, you never know that phenomenon of what's going to become an extremely viral story for a couple of days. You're one of the biggest financial stories in the world, and I really can find no fault from my own meager understanding of the things that you've said here today. In the last minute or two I'd like to give you, what are some other topics that I didn't raise, some things that you think are important that you'd like to talk about? I mean, what do you think of Occupy Wall Street? What do you think of their call for an attack on capitalism? This isn't capitalism, in my view, that did this. It's
right.
It's corrupt monopoly people that control government that are playing by a different set of rules. Give us your view on that, and then anything else you'd like to comment on.
I understand that people out there are really frustrated. I think that's what's going on. I mean, I'm not going to really, obviously the people out there are just frustrated. That's what's going on. I mean, I've been getting emails from people. I think what's really come out of this for me is people have really, I think I've struck a chord with a lot of people out there, because the responses I'm getting is people are saying, listen, I'm really worried. And what you said on TV, you know, I spoke the truth, and, you know, people are really worried, and they should be, because these banks and governments who we put our trust in, and why should we trust them anyway? They're the guys who created this crisis. They produced this crisis, and we're now expecting them to solve it. So, yeah, people have a right to be frustrated and worried. And I, for one, my goal is to help people in any ways I can. I'm not against capitalism, I should say. I'm not against capitalism. I actually think we could have a society with free markets, but hopefully without any corruption. That may sound naive to some people, because some people say, well, there's no such thing as capitalism without corruption. But I think, you know, we should try to be better people.
Well, we know communism is a total nightmare. Look at North Korea. Look at every other example of communism. I mean, for me, this isn't, there's been a con job that the free market did this. No, this is 6 big global mega banks that buy off governments, put their people in place. You said earlier, revolving door takeover. And then they're blaming free market capitalism because they want more government control over their competition. I mean, it's a no-brainer what they're doing. They're praising Occupy Wall Street. They want to raise taxes on the middle class and pay it to themselves in banker bailout money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, my message is very clear. I mean, which was people out there, I mean, I'm talking about the small guy out there. They should realize that putting their trusts in so-called governments and banks to rescue them is highly misguided. People should take control of their lives. First thing that people should do is get some kind of education on how to take control of their own investments. Any kind of education is better than nothing. There's many books out there. You know, I'm going to put some stuff on my website. People should learn for themselves how best to invest their money, not rely on the so-called advice of experts who got us into this mess in the first place. It was the experts who produced this crisis in the first place. So we should really think about nourishing our minds, investing in ourselves, not investing in the markets. That's right. That was really well said. Not investing in this false reality, but investing in real local communities and in our own families, because the whole Wall Street digital economy is waging war against the real economy, and people going to mega banks and government wanting them to protect them. That's like a gazelle going to a lion in the African savannah and saying, please protect me. Stop being a gazelle. Start being the strong, powerful creatures you are. We are prey animals with a group of psychopaths and sociopaths mixed in with a lot of other control freaks who are attacking us. And we've been trained to be passive, to be dumbed down, to be into mindless issues. So we're little, basically, D-legged gazelles. And the lions can just come over and eat us at their leisure because we're designed culturally to be gazelles with no eyes, no ears, no legs. And you know, the lions weigh about 5,000 pounds and can barely move. They're so degenerate.
And I'm just an old Texas redneck who can see what's going on, saying I want freedom. And I'm telling, I mean, I'm a gazelle, but I can run here, you know. And I think that's what comes down to it today. What are you writing about tomorrow there at your news blog?
Yeah, basically what I want to do, I'm gonna publish a few books. I'm sorry, I'm not public books. I'm gonna put out there a few books people can read about how they can educate themselves more about the markets. That's one thing I'm gonna do. Then I'm gonna also write a post about some strategies people can use, some very simple strategies people can use to be able to profit from a downturn in the markets. Again, this is not gambling. One thing I would never recommend to people is gamble.
Yeah. So, just generally buying stocks is random gambling. It's like picking colors on a craps table. I want to thank you for joining us, Alessio Rastani. The website is leadingtrader.com. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. Good show.
Thank you, sir. Amazing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to break here. And then we're going to come back with the one, the only Max Keiser in an extended interview. This is Infowars Nightly News. Stay with us.
The American dream. There's a reason they call it a dream. Who's there? Cock-a-doodle-doo, pal. No! I don't have any more money! My job sucks right now, please! I'll have more money next month! You can't take my house!
Is that your signature?
It is a private bank owned by private stockholders. A private bank? Do not let the name Federal fool you. If I got this money from the bank, and the bank got it from the Federal Reserve dump trucks, where does the Federal Reserve get their money? They take our property away, just like Thomas Jefferson said they would. Those sons of bitches! It's the greatest theft in human history.
And we are back. It's Infowars Nightly News on this October 11th, 2011 edition. And I wanted to end this transmission off with the one, the only Max Keiser. Now, we've talked about a lot of issues with Max in the past, the gulag economy, the fact that banks were going to start charging you to keep money, and in this cashless society that they would basically force people onto a digital plantation where you're actually charged for the right to engage in commerce, kind of a global private tax to the bankers. It's all happening. The Euro dictatorship trying to swallow what's left of their sovereignty. It's self-run by private banks, admitting it's undemocratic. John Major coming out, who was the architect of the major treaty getting England into the Euro, saying it's a terrible thing. We're going to talk about Occupy Wall Street, all these new bank fees. It is all coming up. Democrats throwing Obama under the bus. And Max is also doing big things over in Europe with the first of its kind economic conference. It's all coming up in this in-depth interview with Max Keiser. Max, great to have you here with us.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Alex Jones.
A few weeks ago, a trader came out, a stock trader, on BBC, and it made huge news. And he was an independent trader, and he said that Goldman Sachs rules the world, and that there's a global occupation of bankers. It basically sounded like a replay of Max Keiser or Alex Jones, and everybody freaked out, and dozens of publications, Washington Post, I mean, you name it, BBC, you had to come out and say, yes, this is really a real person, this was a real interview. I mean, now stating the obvious, they have to ask, is the guy a real trader? Why did that get everybody so freaked out? But then when you talk about it on big international television or even on BBC with your own show, it doesn't get as much attention.
Well, the big interesting part of the Rastani interview that you're referring to, what made it really interesting and newsworthy was the reaction of the BBC presenters who have been cuckolded by the banking industry and lied to for years and years that they are doing the right thing and the good thing. And so they were like a spouse who suddenly finds out that their wife or husband is cheating on them. You know, these BBC presenters were told in public that the banks are actually trying to screw them and that they're all crooked. And so they had this reaction, this overreaction, this melodramatic reaction on TV.
Oh, ridiculous. Who could say that? Oh, who ever heard of that? He says fish swim in the sea. Ooh.
So that's what made it a classic TV moment. And I think that's just part of the overall global insurrection against banking occupation, as I call it. It's peeking its way into the mainstream media. It's poking through the wall, and it's
seeping into the matrix.
Yep, the shafts of light of what's really going on are now beaming into the very controlled media situation. So this is a part of that, and it's growing. I'm just reading a tweet right now from Lucy Kavanaugh, who's with Russia Today, and she is saying that there's a crowd outside of Jamie Dimon's house on the Upper East Side of New York City chanting USA, USA. So as you know, Alex, we've been talking about the fact that the real people behind the banking terrorist network are principally Lloyd Blankfein and Jamie Dimon. We've been telling people that they need to focus their attention on these two characters. Now, Jamie Dimon is suddenly being called out for the financial terrorist that he is. The facade has been torn away, and people now understand that if you really are for USA, USA, that you would want this terrorist at Guantanamo Bay or waterboarded or something like that, because he is destroying your economy more than anyone else in the world today. So finally, people understand who the villain is in this story. And this is growing, and your show has, of course, been a big part of that. And I think your call to go after the Fed is also very important, because Jamie Dimon is on the board of directors of the New York Fed, as well as being the CEO of JP Morgan. And the Fed is really the sub-level, which is the level that needs to be attacked. And I know you were down in Texas, and I saw the video down there in Texas, and it makes perfect sense. And I hope people like Naomi Klein, who is now resurfacing again. She was a big name during the anti-globalization movement of the late 90s. And she's kind of taking ownership of the Occupy Wall Street demonstrations and protests. I hope that she understands and begins to talk about the Federal Reserve Bank and what they do and their role in this occupation in our own country by these foreign-owned terrorists, the bankers.
Well, Max, let me raise that to you specifically, because 2-3 weeks ago, I reached out to Occupy Wall Street. I sent reporters all over the country. They really were grassroots. Now in San Antonio, in Dallas, in New York, in D.C., the people that have gotten control of it are Democratic Party operatives in many cases. And they say no Ron Paul signs, no protest the Fed is federal. And then they say to us, how dare you not go after Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Wells Fargo. And I'm like, those are the big mega banks that own the shares of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is how they get their government power. It's how they get their trillions in bailouts. So I'm saying take out their power, take out their fortress, then we can get the little bugger